Well, everyone, again, welcome again to Finding Fitness, Foundations of Strength and Conditioning. Today, our topic is matching your training with your desired outcome. So basically, what we're going to look over today is some common, pursuits within the realm of resistance training, and just kind of talking about how to make sure that you're performing programming that matches up to those outcomes that you're looking for. So, um, there are many ways to go about taking on a resistance training routine, and there's um, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about pursuing even individual goals. So what I wanted to do was kind of introduce a few of the common ones and just kind of go through what a routine might look like, and how and the type of modalities that you might use in order to pursue those goals. So um, today we're going to talk about power development, strength development, muscular hypertrophy, and then weight loss as the four primary type of pursuits that a lot of people undertaking a resistance training routine kind of desire. So we'll start off with power development. Power development is defined by the ability to generate a high amount of force in a short period of time. Essentially, power is a combination of strength and speed. So in order to improve power, you have to develop both of those qualities. So some of the great modalities to improve power are Olympic weightlifting. So there's a sport of Olympic weightlifting, but the movements within it and the variations of those movements are very great, very excellent expressions of power. Barbell training for strength development. Again, we talked about how strength is an important element of power development. So using a barbell to perform strength movements such as squats, deadlifts, bench presses, pressing variations, rowing variations contribute very positively to power development. Plyometrics, so that's jumping, different jumping actions. Again, a really great expression of speed. Same thing with sprinting, another really fabulous tool for improving power. So sprints in a short range, starting as low as 10 meters and going up, to 20, 40, 100, even 200 meters. And then agility training. So things that involve deceleration, change of direction, and qualities like that, where you'll be stopping and starting and expressing that power and that speed in a type of in a movement that would be similar to what you might perform in a sport. So power development is something that is very, very useful for a lot of athletes, or the court athletes, volleyball, basketball, hockey players, any sort of track and field pursuits like high jump, obviously sprinting. And so as far as athlete development goes, power is kind of power's at a premium, and these would be kind of some of the great ways to go about training it. So when we're talking about modalities, go in a little bit deeper and talk about kind of what a training structure might look like for power development. So typically, there's a little bit lower volume in terms of sets and repetitions compared to like a regular kind of general fitness routine where you go into the gym and perform a bunch of movements. So and a higher intensity, so a higher load as a percentage of a maximum. So when you're training, say you're doing snatches or you're doing clean and jerks or some sort of power movements, you're typically going to do just a few working sets between like 2 to 4 sets per exercise, and typically the repetitions will be 3 or below. Now, this isn't an absolute, and there's times where accumulating volume in these types of movements is really valuable, but generally a session that's focused on power development will have less sets and reps than a strength, or especially a hypertrophy session, which we'll get into shortly. So with these higher intensity movements, it requires more rest as well between efforts. So typically between 3 and 5 minutes for those really high-end working sets. Excuse me. So next, we'll go into strength development. Strength development and strength is defined as the ability to generate the maximum amount of force. So before we talked about power, that's the maximum amount of force in the shortest amount of time. So you're kind of taking that shortest amount of time element out of it, which is speed, and just focusing specifically on generating maximum force. So in order to generate maximum force, the capability of the muscles must be able to adapt to the heavier loads, as well as the joints and the tendons. Training for strength requires an increase whether in the volume or the intensity within the specific movements you're training. So you need to be able to either move a load more times or to be able to move a heavier load in order to, continue progressing. So that's kind of the pursuit of strength training, kind of in a nutshell. In order to do this, a lot of times it requires an increase in the size of the muscle, which is hypertrophy training. So a lot of these qualities have a symbiotic nature. We just talked about power development and how strength development has an impact on it. And I'm saying that hypertrophy has an impact on strength development. So you see how all these things are heavily intertwined, and in a long-term perspective, there's a time and a place for pretty much all these different modalities, regardless of what your goal is. So again, talking about strength development, hypertrophy training can be very valuable in order to give your muscles and your joints and your tendons and everything a chance to be able to adapt to a heavier load. So you can't just plow away at strength. There'll be times where you might recognize a weakness. So say, you're trying to increase your deadlift and you realize that your upper back is having a really hard time keeping up with that. Well, then that presents an opportunity where some pulling hypertrophy movements will be able to really, really help your pursuit of absolute strength. So you might have to do some pull-ups or some rows or some pull-downs and these types of things in order to improve the musculature of that area, to give that area the ability to keep up with the rest of your body while you're performing these movements. So for strength development, suggested modalities are typically barbell training is the kind of the focus involving the powerlifting movements. So squat, bench, and deadlift, and then also like military press and rowing are typically the primary kind of foundational modalities for actual strength development. And then on top of that, you have your hypertrophy training, which will involve sometimes cables and dumbbells and machines, those types of things as a kind of an add-on to support your strength development. Additionally, one of the really, really important things sometimes can be a stumbling block when it comes to strength development is maintaining core stability throughout a movement. So core stability training can be really, really important to make sure that you're transferring power through your feet, up through your legs and up into your upper body, whether that be just supporting the barbell in a squat or maintaining a good back position in a deadlift, or just being able to use your lower body to drive the bar off of your chest in a bench press even. So often goes kind of unnoticed or as a kind of an afterthought when it comes to bench pressing, but your legs really at a high end strength, they really will have an important impact on improving your bench press, being able to transfer that energy through your feet up into your upper body. So again, the modalities, barbell training, hypertrophy training, and core stability, really important for strength development. When it comes to strength development, it's fairly similar to power development. There's typically a lower amount of repetitions in a set, so 1 to 5. Again, not to say that there won't ever be a reason to do more than that, especially if you recognize that hypertrophy might be an element that will help you in the pursuit of your goals a little bit more. If you recognize a weakness or have, just general, just a general need for more, for an increased musculature in order to work towards your goals. And then with the core training, it kind of follows a slightly different principle in the hypertrophy training, accumulating volume in those movements to give the muscles a chance to adapt and to grow a little bit larger. So they're talking about, taking, 3 or 4 sets and doing, between 8 and 15 repetitions and doing, and having a decreased rest time. But for those big compound movements, we're looking at, again, between 3 and 5 minutes of rest and giving your body enough time to really put a maximum force effort into the movement. So you don't want to be fatigued when you're working through maximum strength. So rest is at a premium with power and strength development as you go through, especially when you're working at higher ends of your maximum weights. The next part of the modalities is muscular hypertrophy. So this is just the goal of increasing the size of your muscles and finding and building your body in a sense. So kind of the purest expression of this would be bodybuilding, but I mean there's lots of people that have this goal that have no intentions of ever competing in a bodybuilding competition. Not to say, nonetheless, it is essentially the same pursuit. So There are two types of muscular hypertrophy. So sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is increasing the muscle glycogen storage capacity of the muscle, and myofibrillar hypertrophy, which is increasing the myofibril size. And that's the primary result that you're going to get from performing hypertrophy training programs. So in order to increase the muscle size, the fibers become torn during training, and then you replenish the muscle with the proper nutrients and proteins in order to for them to adapt and increase in size to adapt to the stress that you've put on them by performing all of these repetitions. So like I've kind of already alluded to, higher volume lifting with less rest and typically lower intensity is the primary way that individuals train for hypertrophy. So we're talking about 3 or 4 sets of rest, a very short period of time in between efforts, and doing 8, 10, 12, 15, sometimes even higher amounts of repetitions within a set. So the focus is on increasing blood flow to the muscle, and a lot of the times that comes from an increasing amount of time under tension. So you see people doing like really slow eccentrics, or not working all the way through to their end range in order to not lose the tension on the muscle. So a simple example of that would be if you're squatting and you're doing a strength movement, you're doing reps, you're going to stand up all the way. You're going to take a second and take a deep breath and reset your body, and then squat down again. But if you wanted to keep to increase the time under tension on the muscle, you might squat down very slowly, take 4 or 5 seconds into the bottom, and then stand back up, but not to the point where your legs get a chance to rest. So you might squat up to 3/4 of the way or slightly above that, and then go down, but still keeping the stress on the muscle the entire time. So time under tension is a really good quality, or a good modality for increasing hypertrophy, and something you'll see in a lot of bodybuilding type of programming. And the focus again is on increasing that volume. So the amount of repetitions, and in doing so, it reduces the ability to perform at a high intensity. So again, the modality suggested: barbell and dumbbell training, based training. So that's kind of like your bread and butter. And then you add in the cables and the pulleys and the different machines you might have access to, as well as some body weight movements as well. Things like push-ups and pull-ups and dips. All really useful modalities for muscular hypertrophy. The last pursuit we're going to talk about is weight loss. Put very simply, and this is obviously weight loss is a highly debated and speculated and talked about topic, but we're going to focus on keeping things nice and simple. You basically, your body needs to expend more energy than it intakes. So essentially, you're talking about operating at a caloric deficit, meaning that in a day, your body consumes less than it required for the amount of effort it does, and therefore has to use some of the fat storage and glycogen storage within your body in order to feed itself, thereby decreasing your weight and putting you in the right direction towards your weight loss goal. So a lot of times when people are thinking about weight loss, they think about cardio, and not to say that it's not a part of it, but there are many other ways to go about pursuing weight loss. And I kind of wanted to talk about this topic even a little bit more, because of just how important it is for someone who's trying to lose weight, not to just absolutely focus on cardiovascular training. So doing, running and using the treadmill and that type of stuff. It's really, really important to perform resistance training, specifically strength training, but also hypertrophy training, in order to prevent muscle wastage while you're dieting. So as much as, your muscles might not be part of your thought process in terms of losing weight, you just want to lose weight. As far as your health and wellness is concerned, maintaining that muscle and being strong will really have a positive effect on your weight loss goals and on your appearance as you start to lose that weight. Additionally, strength training can be a really, really good exercise routine for burning calories. So a strength training session over an hour period and a continuous effort of like walking or a light kind of bike ride or something can have a very similar caloric output depending on the intensity of the session. It's impossible to say this will have X amount of calories and this will have X, but they will be very similar. So you're not losing out by performing resistance training, and the concept of gaining weight by building muscle is not something that you really have to worry about too much as you're going through going through your, the pursuit of your your weight loss goal, sorry. So really important to not only perform cardiovascular training, but also to include resistance training, keeping your strength up and recognizing that that's a modality that will also burn a lot of calories in the session. Additionally, circuit training, so a good way to kind of combine those things where you're doing some resistance training with a decreased rest, which will end up burning more calories. Also, sprinting and plyometrics, so running fast, doing sort of, a fast effort and then recovering and then doing another fast effort, or jumping. Also, again, burn a lot of calories as you're doing them. Just really important to regulate the amount of volume you're accumulating, making sure you're resting enough in between efforts so that you don't get injured. So those four kind of areas, really common kind of goals when you start looking at weightlifting, or when you start looking at resistance training and health and wellness goals. So I hope that kind of going over them and talking about some of the core concepts for each of them will be valuable for anybody watching the session today, and kind of take something from it and apply it towards your goals. So with that being said, I'll open the floor up for any questions before we get into our actual training session today, and then we'll move on into that.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. There's been some things I have heard before as terms, but you've really dove in and explained them well. And what hypertrophy means and what the benefits are. I think that's something I wasn't really familiar with before. Of course, I'm not, you're the expert, but that's great. Seeing none from our participants. I'll wait a moment, but sounding good. Lots of good info.
Excellent. So now we'll go into the training session. So like last week, I'm just going to perform one set of each movement as we go through, just so that we stay within our time restraints. But I will kind of say, how many sets of reps you may want to do if you're doing it at home. So typically between two and three sets, or even four if you would like to accumulate a little bit more volume through the course of the session. But yeah, I'm just going to perform one set for the sake of time management. So I will get my laptop set up here and we'll get started. So the first thing that we're going to do today is called child's pose to plank push-up hold, and then we're going to do a McGill sit-up. So I'll demonstrate over here. Start off on our knees, so reach our hands out in front of us, push our hips back. Now come up to push-up hold this position for about 5 seconds, switch back. We're going to do 5 repetitions of this. All right, now we're going to do the McGill sit-up. So we're going to lay down on the ground with one heel up towards our butt, and then we're going to reach our hands up towards the ceiling. We're going to do 8 repetitions with one leg up, and then we'll switch legs. We'll do 8 on the other side. So. Okay. So let's get started at the end of our warm-up routine for today. We'll take a second and let anyone that wants to perform a second set kind of go through that motion again. So take about a 30-second break and perform another set of each. Really important with the push-up hold to take the time to engage your core while you're in that position, not just kind of push your hands into the ground. You want to be stabilizing using your abdominals, squeezing your glutes, and kind of holding everything in a nice neutral position, as we've kind of talked about during earlier sessions.
Perfect. I really enjoy that, as a side note, the McGill sit-up exercise. I've been doing them every other day. I say for the long weekend, but I love that exercise. It's very good.
Really, really good, and it keeps your spine in a healthy position, so you're not doing sit-ups or crunches where you're kind of putting excess tension or stress on your cervical region, especially where you're kind of crunching your head down and using other parts of your body besides your core to move. So really, really, really important and good exercise. I learned a long time ago from the great Larry Shepard.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well put. I feel like I'm focused, like my core is in full use. I'm not trying to use the other parts of my body to help me out. It's, yeah. Anyways,
There's really, the man who created it, his name's Stuart McGill. He has some amazing research about core training and how to do it in a way that isn't putting too much, flexion or extension on the spine, because, a lot of those movements were done to like fatigue, where you do 100 crunches or something like that. And by the end of it, you're not doing anything with your abdominals. You're just kind of pulling your neck off the ground and, doing all sorts of different stuff. So it's a very controlled and isolated way to just focus on your abdominals. So really, really great movement.
Well put.
All right. So now we're going to go into our first training sequence. So it's going to be a Romanian deadlift using our bag or our backpack, and then a movement called a Z press, where we're also going to use our backpack as a weight. So we'll go in, we're going to do 8 reps of the Romanian deadlift, and then we're going to also do 8 reps of the Z press. So we'll get started here. So here, I'll do it from the side so you can kind of see my hip hinge. It's a really important aspect of doing the Romanian deadlift. So start with the knees bent, and then we're going to keep our arms long, push our hips back towards the wall, but keep that arch in our back. So keep our chest in front of our shoulders as we tip over. Here we don't have to extend our hips fully through. We kind of leave them on the hinge position. Back down, maintain that arch in our back. If you want to increase the intensity of it, you can take a tempo nice and slow, and then have a nice hold right here, and then come back up. Okay, and then for the Z press, what we're going to do is we're going to sit down on the floor with our feet out in front of us. We're going to keep our torso nice and upright. Have the backpack in front of us. And we're going to press it over our head. Lock the elbows out. Come back down. Really engage your core, trying to lean back. So you want to have the bag behind your head by the time you're done, kind of over top of your shoulders. Okay, that's the Z press and the Romanian deadlift. So what's really good about the Z press, while it's primarily a pushing movement for your deltoids and your triceps, it also challenges your core stability by making you stay upright. So you really got to engage your core to stay forward. And if you're feeling tight in your legs, you probably feel it in your hamstrings as well, because they're trying to keep that stability to allow your torso to stay upright. It's a really, really good pressing movement that kind of a little bit uncommon, but really has a great benefit to it. Also, again, with the Romanian deadlifts, they're kind of using that time under tension principle we talked about with the hypertrophy training. Not extending your knee or your hip all the way allows your hamstring to stay loaded throughout the movement. And if you think about it, say the repetition takes about 2 seconds on the way down and 2 seconds back on the way up. If you stand up every time between, you're giving time for your muscles to kind of rest. Whereas if you keep your knee bent and your hip hinged, then the tension stays on your hamstring throughout the whole movement. So really useful, kind of just a small change, but it makes an impact on the amount of stress you're placing on the muscles being used. So going into the second part of the second sequence of the training session, we're going to do a upright row using the bag as well, and we're going to do a reverse plank hold. So the upright row, really important to keep your elbows above your hands. So you don't want your elbow kind of coming back like this. You want to stay up nice and high. And for the reverse plank hold, you're trying to maintain that straight line between your ankle and your shoulder, but you're going to be facing the other way. So it's a more challenging to some of the muscles in the upper back as opposed to the traditional plank, where you feel it kind of in your shoulders a little bit, but mostly in your abdominals. This one you'll feel more in your lower back and some of the smaller muscles in your upper back as well. So take a second. We're going to do 8 upright rows, and then we're going to do a 20-second reverse plank hold. So grab the handle of the backpack, or if you need to, you can hold onto it right here. I'm just going to start out with a shrug and then raise our elbows nice and high. So here. Okay, and then for the reverse plank hold, go down, our hands behind our shoulders, keeping the hands facing forward. We're going to lift our hips up and keep everything in a nice straight line. Hold this position. I'm going to squeeze the glutes, kind of push your hips through, keep your chest up. There we go. There's a bit of a different type of planking movement. I really feel my upper back muscles being worked, and it's a challenge to keep the glute muscles from lowering down towards the ground. So you really have to engage those to keep yourself in a nice and straight line. Sometimes when people are performing the upright row, they kind of note an impingement in their shoulder. It might feel uncomfortable to take that narrow grip. So one good solution for that is to take a bit wider of a grip. So you could turn your backpack horizontally to kind of widen your grip out and make it a little easier to hold, and a little nicer on your shoulders if you do feel any of that discomfort. So again, we'll take a few seconds, and then we'll go into our third sequence of the day. So that's going to be a reverse lunge with a leg drive, and then a mountain climber with a 3-second hold on either side. So we'll take our time here, and then we'll move into that part of the training session. So kind of we'll take a second, and I'll talk a little bit about how this programming is structured. So we're starting with the warm up. The child's pose to plank push-up hold is really good because you're engaging some of your core muscles, and you're also stretching out some of the muscles of your upper back and your triceps, which are going to be used a lot during this training session. Same thing with the McGill sit-ups, kind of getting the core ready for some more challenging core movements. So again, then you go into the Romanian deadlift, which is a pulling movement. So you are using some of those muscles that you're warming up in your back with the child's pose. And the Z press, kind of getting the core ready for that stabilizing element of the Z press, where you're trying to keep your torso upright while you press. Upright row, another pulling movement. So child's pose really benefits there, kind of getting the muscles in your upper back prepared for that. Same thing with the reverse plank hold, hits both of those items with the core aspect as well as the upper back. And then we're going into some reverse lunge with the leg drive. So we've been working, so we kind of warmed up for that in the sense with the Romanian deadlift, kind of getting some of those posterior muscles ready. And the mountain climber, again, another core movement, which we've already kind of got going as well. So you want to kind of make sure that your warm up, we talked about this before using the ramp protocol, but you want to make sure that your warm up is preparing you for the movements that you're doing and isn't just, or it's important to kind of specialize those movements as opposed to them being very general. So just a little bit of context for the exercise selection for today and how the warm up kind of feeds through the rest of the training program. So we'll go into the reverse lunge and leg drive now, and then the mountain climbers. This will be our third sequence for today. So start off with our hands on our hips, bring our leg back as far as we can, drop the hip down, and then drive the knee up. Find a focal point if you're having trouble with your balance. We're going to do 5 repetitions on each leg. You're always going to have one leg that's a little tougher than the other, so be mindful of that. Be nice to yourself. And keep that toe up in front of you, drive that knee as high towards your chest as you can. All right. If that feels easy for you too, you can make it harder by extending up onto your toe on your plant leg and by holding this position here, like an isometric hold right here. 1, 2, 3, and then back down. Next, we're going to mountain climbers. We're going to do 5 on each side. We're going to do a nice 3-second hold with your knee up towards your chest. So I'll get down in position. Here, drive the knee up towards the chest. 1, 2, 3. Do 5 on each side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Great. So yeah, so again, with all these movements, anywhere between 2 and 4 sets, and modifying them, just making movements simpler, moving through a shorter range of motion, finding different ways that work for you and your own body. Really valuable. We're again, I keep repeating this through the sessions, but working at our own pace, at our own skill level, making sure that we're prioritizing the quality of the movement and the safety of yourself and the individual, as opposed to just performing whatever the workout may say. So really important to put that first.
Good call, Logan. Question for you. So a lot of these, of course, folks that are viewing this and participating today, we're all coming from a different area. So as far as our capabilities are going right now, so if they're trying to determine the appropriate amount of repetitions per their set, what would you suggest? Should the last motion of their set be pretty difficult and then stop, and just in order to be able to do the same amount 4 times or 3 times in a row? What should they be feeling when they're trying to determine what amount of reps they should be doing per set?
Right, that's a really good question, Mike. Thank you. So my response to that would be to really prioritize quality. So if you feel the quality of your movement deteriorating, then stop. So your last repetition should be as good of a movement quality as your first one. You can feel more fatigued, of course. It can feel more difficult, but you should be able to move through the same range of motion, hold your body in the same way. So say you're doing the mountain climbers and you're getting really unstable, and you realize you're getting a lot of kind of movement in your torso, or you're having a hard time even staying upright. That's a good time to stop and to prevent yourself from doing more reps where you're not able to maintain those good positions. Same thing with the reverse lunge. Like if you're having trouble, if you're feeling really fatigued and you're having trouble kind of bringing your leg up, then just leave it kind of where you are, and then take a note of, okay, last week I did 4 reps like this, and then the next time you can have it in your mind, I'm going to try and do more under the with, keeping in mind the movement quality being the number one absolute priority. So you want to move through a full range of motion. You want to hold your body in a way where your spine's being taken care of and it's safe. And you feel like you're not feeling any sort of, pain while you're doing the movement outside of the muscular fatigue you might be feeling. So if you're kind of checking those 3 boxes, keep going. If you're not, then that's the time to stop and to take a rest and then do another set. And another thing too is this is nothing wrong with doing an extra set after you've rested and accumulating more of the reps. So say you're really set on doing, say 3 sets of 10, and that works out to be 30 reps. Say you do 10, next set you do, 8, and next set you do 6. You're at 24, maybe take a rest, do another set of 6. If you want to accumulate that volume, if you have your mindset on it, give yourself the rest and then perform the repetitions with the quality being the primary consideration. Is what I would say.
Great call. That answers my next question too. And it's good insight, because I know I've been in that situation in the past where I decide I'm doing 3 sets of 8 reps and whatever the movement is, and I have not prioritized the quality of movement. I've just forced myself to get to that 8th rep, and it looks completely different than rep number 1. So good call. Thank you, Logan, for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and that from like an injury risk perspective, that's like you're taking on an unnecessary risk, or you can live to fight and add the extra set as opposed to trying to get through the reps then, or just make note of the fact that you didn't accomplish what you were intending to, and then kind of have that in mind for next time. Maybe you wanted 3 sets of 8, you did 8, 6, and 6. Maybe next time try 3 sets of 7, or maybe 8, 8, and 6, or something like that. But just always kind of start at the foundation of being kind to yourself, keeping a long-term perspective, and putting the movement quality the first. So yeah,
great call. All right.
With that being said, we're going to go into the cool down now. So the cool down, we'll do 2 rounds, and we're going to do zombie squat holds. So we're going to squat down into our bottom position as low as we can, but keeping our torso upright and our spine neutral. We'll hold it for 20 seconds, and then we're going to do the pigeon stretch, 2 sets of 20 seconds on each side. So go down, and we'll get that going now. So the zombie squat, again, hands staying at shoulder height or higher. We're going to squat down into our bottom position and hold it for 20 seconds. So wherever that is, it's as long as you can keep this nice and upright. So here, it's nice and comfortable for me. My hands are at shoulder height. We're going to get to 20 seconds. I'm going to turn to the side so you guys can kind of see what my spine, what my torso position looks like in these movements, so that you get an idea of what it looks like to have an upright torso. So let's see here. I'm not doing this, so I know losing this tension. Keep it nice and tall, and your hands can really help facilitate that. So you can see you're kind of extending a little bit by keeping your hands up high. So really focus on that. Come back up, and then we'll go into the pigeon stretch. So you're going to have your front shin, ideally kind of horizontal in terms of the rest of your body, and then you're going to lean forward onto it. You feel the muscles back here really working. Your piriformis, primary muscle, being stretched here. Something that gets really tight from a lot of sitting and sedentary, I was going to say activity, but non-activity. So down here, my knee, my foot are kind of in line. I'm going to lean forward and reach here, wherever you're comfortable. Put your elbows on the ground. I'm going to go from the side so you can see a little better. Like this. You have your elbows on the ground, or you can have them outstretched and drop your head further down for a deeper stretch. Hold this for about 20 seconds, and we'll switch sides. And really extend that back leg. That'll make sure that we're getting a good stretch in the hip that we're stretching here. Kind of try and dropping your chest down towards the ground, increase the stretch as well.
And folks, notice Logan's head position right now. I've been guilty of this in the past where I tuck my head down in order to try to get more of the stretch in, but no, look at neutral spine position. So awesome.
That's right, Mike. Good. That's exactly it. So yeah, you can drop your chest down, but you don't want to do this. Doesn't have any effect on what you're trying to do. So lengthening the spine does. Dropping the chest lower does, but cranking your neck down won't make any difference, and it's not necessarily healthy. So here we go, and then we'll perform a second round of this. I know we have time, so I'll do a second round. Just kind of go right into it. Again, I'll show it from the side, sorry. So feet just outside of shoulder width, toes turned out, hands shoulder height or higher. Keeping that nice neutral spine position, looking kind of straight ahead or slightly up. So here. And if you're not quite in your full bottom end range, just breathe well, and you might notice yourself sinking down. As long as you can keep your torso upright, you're good to go. So and then we'll go into the pigeon one more time, and that'll be the end of the session for today. So sides. All right. Great. So that's the session for today. Before we finish up, if anybody has any extra questions, I'll take a second to answer them before we wrap up session 4 of Finding Fitness.